I'm Heather, and this is a Living with Addiction podcast, where I show you how you have more power than you realize when it comes to helping yourself and your child that's struggling with addiction. Hey, everybody. So, this episode is not about self-care, but I want to take a minute to talk about it because between dealing with my daughter's addiction lately and also dealing with breast cancer, I've had to lean into my self-care routine more than ever lately. And in episode 20, I shared how my recent experiences with my daughter's addiction gave me a peek back into how I used to live my life early in her addiction, but with the perspective of everything that I have learned in the last few years. And we had one day that was really intense recently where my old coping mechanism of going numb kicked in. And it reminded me just how bad things were for me before I started focusing on my own physical and mental health when I was just focused on fixing her before. And that experience made it just so much more clear for me than ever how important it is to put your own oxygen mask on first when you're dealing with your child's addiction. Do you think about what you're willing to do for your own health and well-being? I see just more and more that I'm willing to do whatever it takes for myself, whatever it takes. The same way I used to be willing to do whatever it took to help everybody else. I'm my priority now. And I love crystal singing bowls, so I started searching for crystal singing bowl sound baths around here. I found a few of them, but they're all at least an hour and a half from me each way. And I've tried 3 of them. So that means 3 hours or more round trip each time I've gone to different places to try these. And I found my favorite one is on the beach every Wednesday night. And it takes me an hour and 45 minutes to get there. And sometimes I can't believe that I'm that invested in myself, that I'm willing to make that drive just to do something like that. And I also can't believe that I'm lucky enough to get to live in paradise where I get to do something like that. And the sound bath and guided meditation lasts for about an hour and a half. It's just this incredible experience to be laying on the beach, hearing the birds, especially the seagulls in the water, and hearing and feeling the singing bowls and the drums, because those instruments all create vibrations that you can feel in your body, and feeling the warmth of the late afternoon sun and the breeze on my skin. I can't even do the experience justice by trying to describe it, but that's an hour and a half where my mind is mostly quiet and my nervous system gets a break to regulate. We get stuck in fight or flight because we spend so much time thinking about the traumas that we experience with our kids. And it's really important to get what I'm about to say. And that's that the more you think about it, the more you experience it. Your body is reliving what happened as if it's actually happening again. You're creating that experience in your body by thinking about it. So we have to learn to regulate so that we can live healthy, productive, peaceful lives no matter what our kids are doing. That's why self-care is so important to me. When I go to the sound bath, it's a 6-hour total time investment for me with driving in the time that I'm there. But I can't think of a better investment of 6 hours of my time. I leave there feeling like I've left the weight of the world behind. So I just want to ask you, how are you investing in yourself? And if you are, See if you can lean into your self-care a little more. And if you aren't investing in yourself, then I encourage you to find something you love to do. Just keep trying things until you find what works for you, what helps you, what gives you that relief I described to you. I've found so many activities that I love that way by just searching for what works for me. And I have a lot of different things that work for me. All the stress from your child's addiction needs an outlet. Otherwise, it's just stuck in your body. And a few days ago, a client and I were joking about how much we exercise to help our nervous system regulate. And, we were talking about, and she was like, and this is after I've ran and done all these other things today. And I was like, yeah, I went and ran this morning until I just couldn't run anymore. We have to move the energy related to the stress out of our body so that we can have clear thoughts and a healthy body to go through our life with. It's a two-part process. You have to release the stress from your body and curate very intentional thoughts about your child and about your life so you don't keep reliving the trauma. I'm putting together a self-care series that will come out later in May. They're a series of podcasts. And I'm really excited to share that with you guys because I've given you 20 some episodes of mind work, but I also want to share how you can help your body too and how those two things work together. But I want you to start thinking about it now. What can you do for yourself to put your own oxygen mask on first? How can you release some of the stress? We have to take care of ourselves the way we want our kids to take care of themselves. That's really the answer. I know we think the answer is fixing our kids, but if we can't do that and they don't want to do that and they are not ready, the only answer is for you to take care of yourself. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to today's topic. I want to focus on a question that's been coming up for me a lot lately. And other parents share this with me too, so I know that it comes up for you as well. And that question is, what would your life be like without your child's addiction? I mean, really, you can insert any problem here. It doesn't have to just be addiction. Anything that you blame your life on, it's all the same. Would your life be easier if your child wasn't struggling with addiction? Would you be happier and healthier? I mean, it seems like a harmless question to ask yourself, but without the right perspective, that question can also keep you stuck. As long as something outside of you is the reason your life is the way it is, then you're always powerless. You can't change it. There's nothing you can do. But when you take ownership of the situation and focus on what you can control, then you take your power back and you're focused on a battle that you can win. You're focused on something you can change. When you're focused on the addiction and your child, you cannot win the battle. When you're focused on yourself and what you can control, then you're on the right track. And I want to acknowledge that, of course, you think about that. Of course, you fantasize about what life would be like without addiction. Who wouldn't? It's only natural to wonder about it. I just want to help you get to the other side of that. I don't want you to be stuck there. I want to help you. I want to take you from wondering about it to creating the life you think you could have if your child wasn't struggling with addiction. And first, I want to point out that wondering what your life would be like without your child's addiction, it's a one-sided question. It assumes you'd still have the benefits of the things you learned from your child's addiction. Your perspective of as the parent of a child struggling with addiction. My daughter's addiction was my biggest teacher in life until breast cancer showed up recently. So right now I have two very intense teachers in my life, and they're handing me lessons all day, every day. My perspective about life has changed tremendously because of those teachers. And my first instinct is to say that it's changed me, but that's really not true. What it's done is made me more of myself. It's helped me shed a lot of the conditioning that I picked up in life. And now I live a life that's tailored to things that I love instead of tailored to things that other people love. I also have so much less judgment and so much more compassion. Less labeling of things as good and bad, more insight, less looking at things as wrong or right. The question of what would my life be like without my child's addiction assumes your life would just be better. It also assumes nothing else would be affecting your life if it wasn't for their addiction. You'd still have parenting to do, though. You'd still be giving your child your time. It would just feel different because you would be labeling your time investment as beneficial. So I spent last Friday driving my daughter to rehab. It was an all day investment of my time, and I didn't get home until midnight. And I was exhausted by the time I got home. It was like once I dropped her off, just the heaviness of everything that had happened over the last couple of weeks, just it hit me all at once. Like I didn't even think I was going to be able to make it home driving. It was pretty intense how hard it hit me. And I had to spend a couple of days just resting after that. And so, of course, I had some mind drama about that investment of my time and energy, and I was frustrated about it. I own, though, that a lot of my frustration stemmed from not protecting myself better. But part of learning how to do that, that's just part of the process. I want to be open and vulnerable with my daughter, but that means I'm going to get hurt sometimes. Just like in any other relationship, though, that's not unique to dealing with a child with addiction. So while I was driving and over the weekend, I had a lot of hours to think. And I realized that part of the reason I was angry was because I wasn't sure if my time investment would be beneficial. I wasn't sure if my daughter would stay in rehab. I just on the way home kept waiting for the phone to ring for her to say, get me the hell out of here, or them to say, come back and pick her up. And I wasn't sure if she stayed, 30, 60, 90 days, whatever, if she would stay sober when she got out. I was just judging the whole situation, looking at it from a fearful standpoint. But then I thought, all right, what if I was just driving her back to college? There'd be no guarantee that her college experience would be successful, but I would be optimistic and labeling it as a worthy investment of my time. Wouldn't be fearing that I would be wasting my time. So I had to work through owning my decision to drive her. I could have said no. I didn't have to take her. It would have felt really shitty not to take her, but it was still a choice. Then second, choosing to think this is her school. Rehab is her school. Mind drama about what I was doing was 90% of the battle, and that's how it is with everything in life. You have to have intentional thoughts. Those were my intentional thoughts. And when I'm not thinking intentionally, it has a major effect on my energy level. I mean, our thoughts can totally deplete us, or they can be neutral and have no real effect on our energy either way, or our thoughts can really energize us. So, in order not to deplete my energy, I have to see that I'm making every single choice and that I don't have to do anything that I want to. I have to own my choices. And even if I don't like my options, it's still a choice. Like if I'm not excited about not taking her and I'm not excited about taking her, it's still a choice. I choose to drive her to rehab, and then I chose how I wanted to think about it. That gets me out of a large part of the mind drama so I can focus on myself and what I want to create in my life. So I just walked you through the first step of creating the life you think you'd have if you weren't dealing with your child's addiction. Step one is very intentional thoughts about your child's addiction that serve you. Second, you have to focus on what you can do to protect your time and energy. That means fine tuning what you're willing to do, thinking about boundaries. I have an episode just on boundaries. You can go listen to that to get more ideas about it. But this is an ongoing process. Most parents can't go from addiction running their life in total chaos to being in control overnight. I always tell my clients it's like a video game. You get good at one level and you move up to the next level. You play at that level for a while, you build more skills that get you ready for the next level. You just do that over and over again, building more skills as you go. And after this latest round of intense situations related to my daughter's addiction, I've moved to another level. I'm creating different skills, deciding how I'm going to handle that next level. I've released her a little bit more. And I'm really focused on the fact that she's a grown woman. She's going to be 21 in a few months. When I was 21, I never expected anybody to take care of me. I certainly appreciated help when it was given to me, but I never thought my problems were my mother's problems, and I'm grateful for that. But sometimes I think that my daughter's problems are my problems. And when I do that, of course, I make it easier for her to think that they're my problems as well. But luckily, I have friends who are very brave, brave enough to send me text messages that they're a little bit worried about being so honest with me. But I am so grateful that I'm surrounded by people like that, because I'm going to read you this text that my friend sent me the other day, and it instantly snapped me out of owning responsibility for everything. And this is what she said. This was in a series of text messages. This was one of the last ones. She said, also, this will probably make you pissed off, but you've been trying to figure out how to get Helena sober and keep her sober for over 6 years, and none of your ideas have worked. So what makes you think any of your future ideas would work? This is like me talking to a client. If your mom was in charge of getting your health care lined up for your breast cancer surgery, she'd do all the wrong things for you, which is why you're doing it for yourself. She was 100% right. I'm the best person to decide what's right for me, and my daughter has to decide what's right for her. I can't own responsibility for her life, and I really truly believe I don't know what's best for her. I'm the only person that knows what's best for me, so why would I think that I know what's best for her? Even I need help getting back on track sometimes, and I am so grateful that I'm surrounded by people who will hit me with hard truths like that. That's a hard truth. But it instantly snapped me out of powerless victim mode, and I immediately felt a huge burden of responsibility lifted off my shoulders. Then I could go back to thinking how I can protect my time and energy on this level of the video game. So, how can I protect my time and energy? I want to share a few things I learned from the events of the past few weeks. And as you're listening, I want you to think about what you can do to level up how you respond to your child's addiction, how you can prepare yourself for the next level. The first thing is, I have more guilt to work through. My daughter got me with some zingers a few weeks ago, and I immediately started responding to her in the whole situation from a place of guilt, which meant that I stopped following my instincts and started second guessing myself I haven't done that in a long time. That's how I used to live my life, was from coming from a place of guilt pretty much for everything. And I second guessed myself on everything and I shut down my instincts. I'm not used to living that way. So it was pretty painful to go back into that. The problem isn't the things that my daughter said to me that made me feel guilty. The problem is that I have guilt to work through. All she did is point it out to me. She just showed me areas that I need to work on. The second thing is, in my guilty state, I owned the whole situation instead of putting some of the responsibility on her. So, just like I tell myself, and just like I tell you guys, even if I was a terrible mother and my daughter's life was awful, it's her responsibility to work through her issues and create the life she wants. Our kids can't get better if they're victims of their life. They have to focus on what they can control, just like we do. They are responsible for healing themselves. Now, I'm not saying that I'm a terrible mom or that my daughter's life was awful. I'm just saying that even if it is true, she's still responsible for her own healing, just like we are. And next time I'll point that out. I'll point out that I have owned my part. I have changed. I am taking responsibility in every way that I can, and she has to do the same thing. Now, this hasn't happened between us in years, so it totally caught me off guard. I think it only happened because she was really in crisis that day, but it was still a huge learning opportunity for me. And the third thing is, if my daughter is in crisis mentally or physically again, I will not let it go on like I did this last time. I will know that I am not equipped to handle it, and I will seek medical attention for her sooner. Again, there's more details about this in episode 20, so you can listen to that episode to hear more of the backstory, and maybe this will make more sense. But my point here is that based on what I learned, I will respond differently next time. That's just 3 examples of how I'm going to up-level protecting my time and energy. The key point here is that most of these events took place over a 24-hour period, but the energy drain has continued on since then. It gets a little bit better each day, but it has taken over, away from my overall quality of life. And I want to protect that. That's why it's important to learn from each situation and make adjustments to how you want to respond. Addiction might be their issue, but how it affects our life, that's up to us. Time and energy is a precious resource, and I want to spend as much of it as I can enjoying my life instead of needing days of downtime to recover from traumatic events that can be handled differently. So here's the third and last part. I want you to answer the question: what do you think your life would be like if your child wasn't addicted? What would you be doing? How would your life be different? How would you feel each day? What would your family be like? What do you think their addiction is keeping you from doing? I want you to write all those things down. Then I want you to go create those things. Your child's addiction is not a reason not to do any of those things. Here's the hard truth. It's just an excuse that's holding you back. You're stuck in inaction, which means you probably feel really busy, like you're doing a lot of things. But the truth is you're spinning your wheels and not actually creating anything. I mean, admittedly, maybe your path to what you want looks a little different or takes a little longer because of your child's addiction, but you can still get there. I mean, it's our natural tendency to wait for this magical, better, or right time to do things. But the problem is fear is always going to say it's not the right time yet. Fear always lists all the things that can go wrong, but what if now is just the best time? And I want you to know I'm living exactly what I'm telling you to do. And I know other mothers who are doing it too, other fathers who are doing it, other loved ones who are living the life, spouses that they could live if their loved one wasn't struggling with addiction. And I've had those thoughts recently that how much more I could create if I wasn't dealing with my daughter's addiction or breast cancer. It's easy for me to believe that those things are holding me back. I can come up with great arguments for how those circumstances limit my life. But I can also come up with great arguments for how those circumstances have helped me create a better life. So I'm leaning into answering those questions for myself and then doing the things I need to do to create the life I want. I'm using my circumstances to push myself into creating more, to finding more activities that I love, like sound baths on the beach, to dreaming about the future I want and taking steps to make it happen. You can have a child struggling with addiction, and you can also have the life you believe you can't have because of their addiction. It might not look exactly the same, and maybe it takes a little longer, like I said before, but it is possible. So here's the steps again. Step 1, have intentional thoughts about your child's addiction that serve you. Step 2, protect your precious resources of time and energy. Step 3, use the time and energy to create the life you think you would have if your child wasn't struggling with addiction. So if you're feeling stuck and it feels impossible to create the life you want, let's talk about it. I'll help you move forward and create the life you want, but think you can't have. Use the link in the show notes to sign up for a call with me. That's all I have for today. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I will talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want to learn more about my work, go to heatherrosscoaching.com. If you want to help other parents who are struggling with a child's addiction, you can do it 2 different ways. First, you can share the podcast with them directly, or you can share it on your social media. Second, you can leave a review. Talk to you next week.